Hi everybody, Matt Geary for Geek Pride here, and we've got another theory piece for you to go along with my Three Heads of the Dragon Targaryen piece from last time, and similarly my Jon Snow piece. Now obviously another week has passed, more Game of Thrones has happened, and everybody's freaking out, so I don't have to mention that there will be spoilers, both past and potentially future, in this piece. So if you want to keep on listening, or if you want to keep on reading, if you're reading it on the website, then you need to stop here. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on, and it's your own fault if anything's ruined for you. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, here we go. Okay, so this piece isn't going to dwell too much on last night's heart-wrenching episode of Game of Thrones. Instead, I want to rewind a bit and talk about the Umbers, then move forward and talk about some potential characters in the books that might make an appearance. This being said, I can't just ignore what happened last night, can I? So we have all been hit with this big, heart-wrenching and deeply sad episode of Game of Thrones, where fan favourite Hodor heroically gave up his life to expedite the escape of his master Bran and Mira Reed. The gentle giant, played by Northern Irish actor Christian Nairn, was finally given the scene that I'm sure most actors dread, their death, and it is apparent by recent interviews that he wasn't expecting it. Having lasted 5 books and 6 seasons, I didn't think anyone would have thought the same. Now, some book readers have stated that he'll survive in the books, but I fear my literary brethren that Martin was the reason behind his death, and we can't expect any grace when it comes to the winds of winter. The proof in this bitter pudding is as follows. In a recent interview with David Benioff, he stated, "We had this meeting with George Martin, where we're trying to get as much information as possible out of him, and probably the most shocking revelation he had for us was when he told us the origin of Hodor and how that name came about. I just remember Dan and I looking at each other when he said that, and I was just like, holy shit." And if that's not concrete enough, a blogger called Michael Ventrella remembers talking to Martin in a lift once at a con, and the conversation goes something like this. Around the 3rd time we were on the elevator together, he pushed the button for our floor and then asked the others what floors they needed. And then after everyone left, he turned to me and he says, "I always wanted to be an elevator operator if the writing thing hadn't worked out." We both had a laugh and went on to our rooms. Now, the final time we ended up together, conversation went kind of like this. Me: "I finally figured out why you have a character named Hodor." Martin says, "Oh?" Me: "I was thinking about your comment about wanting to be an elevator operator. It's clear to me that Hodor is short for hold the door." Martin, laughing: "You don't know how close to the truth you are." So there you have it. The episode and the death of a beloved character can't be put down to a ratings grab on overzealous HBO, but will in fact be laid at the feet of the author once more. Damn you, Martin! Now, on a side note to this, the surprising thing about Hodor is that he was a product of Bran's powers, and that one scene where Walder, or Willis, finally becomes hold door, Hodor, is that if he can be manipulated by a time-travelling Bran, who else can? Is Westeros and the timeline as it is what it is because of Bran? Does he, in a bid to fix things by talking to people in the past, actually cause more damage? Now, this is probably a debate for another time, so onwards! So, next up we have Lady Stoneheart and Coldhands. Now, Lady Stoneheart and Coldhands are 2 characters, undead characters to be exact, who are in the books and yet absent from the series, to the lament of many book fans. That is until the recent interview with Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner, where they state when asked about the 6th season. Now, Maisie Williams says 3 things. She says, Arya goes to Westeros back over the sea, which is pretty much a taken, so not a massive surprise. She says, Arya is in the trailer more times than people have realised because they don't realise it's her. Now, being an assassin for the many-faced god, again, not a huge surprise. Her 3rd statement is Arya doesn't cross any more names off her list, which is a bit surprising. You know, interesting, has she given up on the 3 names that she wanted to kill? For me, that is unlikely. Now, Sophie Turner says that Ramsay dies. Now again, this is a take-in. There has to be a big battle, a battle of the bastards if you will, and I'm guessing there's going to be only one outcome, Ramsay getting his comeuppance. She says that Arya checks 3 people off her list, so in contradiction to what Maisie said. So which one is right? Is she checking people off her list? Isn't she checking people off her list? But the final point she makes, and this is where this comes from, is that Lady Stoneheart returns. Now this is interesting. Granted, this should maybe be taken with a pinch of salt, especially as they contradict each other slightly, but the interesting revelation that, inverted commas, Lady Stoneheart returns is very plausible in my mind, and here is why. Now, if you have no idea who the aforementioned is, then spoiler, it's Catelyn Stark, but the resurrected version of. After the Red Wedding, Dondarrion gives his life so she may live, and she is transformed into a new, darker character who travels the countryside with the Brotherhood without banners, executing all she believes to be traitors. Unfortunately for us, this potentially includes our honourable knight Brienne, who at the request of Jaime is sent to find Sansa and is stopped by Lady Stoneheart and her band of brothers. You would have thought Brienne would be safe. She swore an oath to Lady Stark after all, but sadly it doesn't look like that matters. When she sees the sword Oathkeeper at her side, made from the reforged steel of Eddard's blade Ice, she orders Brienne to be hung as a traitor, and just before the chapter ends and Brienne is to meet her fate, she sees the struggling body of Pod beside her on the gallows and says one word. Now, there is a bit more to this story that moves on in A Dance for Dragons and links in Jaime Lannister, but this is a theory piece and not one about me telling you what happens in the books, so if you're interested, give them a read, they're very good. Okay, so what does this have to do with Brienne and Lady Stoneheart in the series? Sansa has been found, Lady Stoneheart is nowhere to be seen, everything is fine, or as fine as can be in Westeros. Well, I guess that would be true if it wasn't for what I said in the last article about different routes from books and the series converging. As it is, Brienne is being sent to the Riverlands, and Sansa made a point of stating that they couldn't risk a raven, that she needed Brienne to go in person, which stinks to me of forced storyline, like locked doors pushing you down a corridor in a computer game. They need a reason for her to go to the home of the Tullys, the Riverlands, and taking into account the above statement from Sophie Turner, it makes perfect sense. Besides, we don't know what Martin has in store for her with regards to the endgame of the books and so the series, so she might be a vital character. Or just a way to kill off another person that everybody likes. Okay, so we're moving on to Coldhands now. So, who is this Coldhands chap that people are talking about? Well, like Lady Stoneheart, he is an undead character from the books that helped numerous other characters, including Samwell Tarly and Bran. In fact, Coldhands, who saves both from the White Walkers and gets Bran to the cave of the Three-Eyed Crow. He is... nobody knows really, as he refuses to show his face, but there is general consensus from book readers that it's Benjamin Stark. Now obviously this has not happened in the book, and we are at the cave and past the above, so why would he show up now? Well, Hodor is gone, the children of the forest are gone, Summer is gone, and all Bran has left is a struggling Mira Reed, who probably will come to her own at some point in time, but that's it. There's no way they can survive without help, and I think it is perfect time for the show to introduce a character who was so instrumental in the books, and in the same instance, show us where Benji Stark really went. Okay, so now the final theory piece, the coup de grace, the Umbers ruse. Okay, so we all saw in episode 3 that Small John Umber betrayed his former king's family by handing over Rickon Stark and the wildling Osha to their mortal enemy, the Boltons, citing the fact that Jon Snow had settled wildlings on the gift and so would be a threat to their lands. A plausible explanation, they have been fighting wildlings all their lives, after all, but something doesn't add up, and I get the impression our good friend Littlefinger has something to do with this as well. Now first off, we have to look at the Umbers. Northmen through and through, and loyal bannermen to the Starks, having followed Ned to rebel against the Mad King, and the Great John being the one who named Robb King of the North. In the books and in the series, the Great John, and so the Umbers, loyalty is never in question. The Great John winning many battles for Robb and even being badly wounded after the Red Wedding. In the series, he isn't at the wedding, and in the books, it's actually the Small John who's killed. It therefore doesn't sit right with me that they would suddenly take cause with the Boltons and hand over Rickon and Osha. No, there has to be more than this that meets the eye. In the books, it is noted that the Great John is imprisoned by the Freys, and his house is split, with half taking cause with the Boltons and half taking cause with Stannis. Now that's right, kids, he's still alive. One thing to note about this, though, is that half that took the cause with the Boltons aren't really trusted. Now back to the series. Small John Umber appears in Winterfell, alludes to his father dying, then refuses to bend his knee, swear fealty, or pay homage to Ramsay. He just wants an alliance against the Wildlings, to which Ramsay is duly sceptical about. Small John allays this scepticism by providing him with hostages, identified authentically by the severed head of Shaggy Dog, or what we think is Shaggy Dog. An accord is duly made to the horror of all the show's watchers. We then see a scene in the next episode of Osha trying to assassinate Ramsay, though failing, and in the scene where Littlefinger has just returned to the Vale and informs his adopted nephew that his cousin may need his help. It is then agreed that the Knights of the Vale will ride to Sansa's aid. Now where is the link, you might ask? Well, Littlefinger, as I've stated in my last piece, is power building, and he can't gain control of the North if one, Sansa is dead, and two, if the Boltons are still there. So how does he deal with that? Well, he does what he does best and manipulates the Umbers to his own ends and gives them the opportunity to get revenge for the betrayal of the Red Wedding. But why hand over Rickon, Osha and kill Shaggy Dog? Well, simple, it gives reason for Jon Snow to attack, Sansa to seek his help, though she's turned it down, and puts a Stark back in Winterfell, adding more weight to the rallying call to the attack on the Boltons. Now, if Rickon's killed in the north, then there's another martyr, and more will turn against Ramsay. If he survives, it's a banner of hope. As it is, I feel Littlefinger may want him out of the way. In the end, his aim, in my opinion, is to marry Sansa and take control of the north, as well as holding onto the Vale and Harrenhal. A younger brother and so potential heir may prove inconvenient. Now, Osha is there because she had to be, and if she can kill Ramsay, then gravy. Shaggy Dog, on the other hand, well, maybe a necessary evil to legitimise the parley, or maybe just not a direwolf after all. So there you have it. The Umbers, with the help and manipulation of Littlefinger, aren't, in this geek's opinion, taking the side of the Boltons and will get the revenge they desire, but in doing so hand Littlefinger another chunk of Westeros, and so fulfilling my prophecy of how the Game of Thrones will end. Dun, dun, dun. So there we have it. Theory piece ended. As always, if you enjoyed it, please leave me a comment below, give us a thumbs up, give us a share, give us any theories you think there is, or if there's anything you'd like to know about, then let me know and I'll see if I can do a piece on it. But other than that, I've been Matt Geary. Thanks a lot.